In 2004, Troika Games, a gaming company founded in 1998 by legendary Fallout creator Tim Kaine and Interplay developers Leonard Boyarsky and Jason Anderson, released their final game as a company, Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines, a game some herald as one of the greatest, if perhaps unfinished, RPGs of all time. Bloodlines was a game made with the intention of moving away from the industry standard RPG, which at the time sat comfortably in the dominant D&D or medieval fantasy genre. Much like Troika's 2001 Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura, an industrial revolution-focused fantasy setting, Bloodlines sought to do something different and put players in control of a vampire in early 2000s Los Angeles within the World of Darkness tabletop role-playing setting created by White Wolf Publishing in 1991. In Bloodlines, you play as a fledgling vampire in one of 7 out of the respective 13 major vampire clans within the setting. The clans, each with their own bonuses and negatives, represent different builds within the game, from the blood magic wielding Tremere to the my power is that I'm attractive Toreador, or the disfigured, shadowy, masquerade on sight breaking sewer dwelling Nosferatu, my personal favorite. Each of these clans offered players the chance to customize their experience not only in terms of difficulty, with clans like Nosferatu forcing players to use the in-game sewer system to traverse the world, but also allowed a variety of interactions with other vampires within the game itself, with the story split between the different districts of Los Angeles and focusing on everything from the political rivalries within the vampire elite, the Society of Leopold's hunt to eradicate vampires from the world, and a mysterious relic that could spell the end of the world of vampires as we know it. Bloodlines was an ambitious game in scope, to say the least, as it sought to create a living, breathing world for you to explore and take part in. This obsession with setting and its dedication to writing the different clans as unique is a huge reason that, to this day, Bloodlines is considered by many as the greatest vampire game of all time. With an iconic opening and first act and a wildly interactable world thanks in part to Valve's Source engine, Bloodlines promised players an experience of a lifetime, until it didn't. Sadly, Bloodlines, like many games before and since, suffered from a troubled development and a rushed launch by its publisher, Activision. Despite its 3-year dev cycle, the game underwent numerous internal and oversight changes and thus was unable to release as a product that stands firmly cohesive in quality, with many of its ideas to include its initially promised multiplayer left on the cutting room floor. The game, which launched just under 20 years ago at the time of making this video on November 16th, 2004, had to contend with the likes of juggernauts and industry-defining games like Bungie's Halo 2, Valve's Half-Life 2, and Konami's Metal Gear Solid 3, each releasing within a week, or in the case of Half-Life 2 on the exact same day as Bloodlines. As a result of its poor release timeline, minimal marketing, and just a general unpolished state, the game sold a paltry 72,000 copies on release, Troika's worst release in their company history. Yet despite poor sales, the game was heralded as, and forgive the cliche, a flawed masterpiece by many reviewers, many of which highlighted its variety of role-playing elements and excellent writing as refreshing and utterly unique. Sadly, its poor sales, numerous technical issues, and clearly unfinished latter half doomed Troika Games, which shut its doors in February 2005 after firing most of its staff in December 2004, leaving the game unpatched and without a team to fix it. Though in the years since its release, its cult following has attracted many modders attempting to patch the game into a working or even completed state. As someone who played the game for the first time just a couple years ago in 2022, even the most Herculean efforts by the best modders cannot patch or rather fix what isn't finished. Still, as someone who speaks of the game sans nostalgia, I can attest as a lifelong fan of the RPG genre as a whole, Bloodlines is truly one of the most unique RPGs ever made, and an experience I can highly recommend. Yet this video isn't a review of Bloodlines necessarily, though this preamble may make it seem like it was. Instead, this video is for those of you like me post-playing the game, who have been hungering for the spiritual successor, or rather sequel, to Bloodlines. Something to bring the vampire RPG into the 21st century of gaming and modernize its systems for new fans and new players to enjoy. Well, in this video, I'm here to tell you that that game exists. Oh, and I know what you're thinking. Soul, what about Bloodlines 2? In 2015, 11 years after the release of Bloodlines, White Wolf Publishing, the creators of the World of Darkness setting, were bought by Swedish publisher Paradox Interactive, a company mostly known for their grand strategy games. Shortly after, the Seattle-based Hardsuit Labs reached out to Paradox with a pitch for a Bloodlines sequel, with official development beginning sometime around 2016. Veteran designers like Brian Metsoda, who worked previously on Bloodlines alongside legendary game writer Chris Avalon, had Bloodlines 2 poised, if anything, to be well written and developed as a setting. But by late 2020, after delays plagued development, the game had lost both Metsoda and Avalon, as well as its creative director Kaya Clooney and lead writer Kara Ellison. By 2021, the game was taken from Hardsuit Labs and for 2 years sat in a sort of development limbo, until fall 2023, when Paradox announced that the Chinese Room, makers of Everybody's Gone to Rapture and the Amnesia series, would take over the project. Since then, the game has showed off a few teasers and been delayed until early 2025, meaning the development has been going on for nearly 10 years between 2 developers, and it's slated to release 20 years after its predecessor. Needless to say, I, a veteran gamer who can only imagine how difficult it must be for teams to make something cohesive over such a long stretch of time, am skeptical of the sequel's ability to live up to its predecessor for probably obvious reasons. I'm not going to sit here and criticize what we've seen so far from Bloodlines Bloodlines 2 because it's obviously a lot more complicated than just, angry gamer doesn't like the name Fear. Because we're not here to talk about Bloodlines 2. We're here to talk about Princes of Darkness, a total conversion mod for Paradox's Crusader Kings 3, a mod I believe that is every bit the sequel, spiritual successor, or whatever you want to call it, that fans of the original Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines crave and deserve. Initially released by Flintsparc or Spark in 2014 for Crusader Kings 2, Princes of Darkness began as a Vampire the Requiem mod, a modern setting and successor to the Masquerade setting, with many similarities but with at the time a bit less lore and background books. Due to community and internal team pressures, the mod's focus was quickly shifted to the Masquerade setting in late 2014, specifically the Dark Ages portion of the lore, giving it a late medieval twist and allowing the developers to explore numerous developments within the lore, from the usurpation of the Cappadocians by the Tremere to the founding of the Camarilla and the Sabbat. Development for the Dark Age focused mod began in earnest with the release of the Dark Ages 20th Anniversary Gamebook by White Wolf in 2015, which is where much of the mod's lore and mechanics are drawn from. But the mod itself is not limited in scope to simply playing as vampires. In its Crusader Kings 3 iteration, which is the focus of this video, players can select everything from roving werewolf clans, a newly awakened mummy, vile demons, righteous warriors of Christ, and hunters of vampires, which is my favorite way to play, or the mysterious fae as an option. The real difficulty, besides learning the new mechanics of course, is deciding where to start with each of these subsects, or splats as they are referred to in the mod. There are rare occurrences when a mod transcends the game in which it was made for. While I won't go as far as to say Princes of Darkness is so completely removed from its Crusader Kings 3 origin that it's completely unrecognizable, I will say that its changes and features do enough to warrant calling it a proper game unto itself. And in this video, I'd like to show you how. Upon loading the mod and selecting New Game for the first time, players will be greeted by this glorious screen here. Now, as you can see, there are a ton of vampire clans to choose from. Now, the game isn't only about the vampires, as I've said, but if you're somebody who has a particular favorite clan, like for me, like I said, it's Nosferatu and then Malkavians, they're kind of tied. I can select any of these characters and then just hop in to some of the pre-selected ones, but there are more options than just these on the map, because as you know, the map is the entirety of Europe, a good chunk of Asia, and then Northern Africa. So there's a lot to choose from. But Dark Ages Vampires will give you basically the most common options. I think Helena of Troy is one of the most commonly chosen ones, so we may select her to start off here. We've got Mithras. There's all kinds of characters that got a lot of background lore like that they have within the lore itself. So if you're somebody who's coming to this as a fan of White Wolf in general, you'll probably get a kick out of that too. So as you can see also up here at the top, we have the birth of the sects. So this would be later on. This is 1510. So we have like Dracula. This is when the sects become a lot more finalized, basically. We have the Patron War. This is literally just Patreon people's characters. So they're kind of an overpowered area. But if you come down here to this little egg, you can see that there's some pop culture characters. You have like Astarion, you have Nandor the Relentless. There's just a couple, or like Abraham Van Helsing. This is just basically a fun start if you wanted to try something different out. Dark Age Fae will let you play as various different Fae characters, to include Santa Claus. Santa Claus is up here somewhere. I can't remember, but there's a ton of them. I mean, look at this guy. He looks sick, or like this horrifying. But there's all kinds of stuff in the Fae. I don't typically play as Fae because I'm still trying to figure out how exactly they work. Jinn are also kind of difficult, but the mod definitely doesn't lack for things to do. It can seem a little bit overwhelming at times, just because there's not only so much to choose from, but there's so much to do once you are in it. The Dark Ages Hunters and Hunted is usually the one I do because I enjoy seeing like Horus in the mod, and I really enjoy having the Hunters in the mod, because the thing is, certain bookmarks, like if you don't select the Fae, they won't spawn in, or if you don't select, the Hunters and Hunted, the Inquisition won't spawn in. So I always like to pick this one usually, just so I can have them in here. And you get various werewolf clans. As you can see, you can actually transform at will as a werewolf, so that's a pretty cool option. And then the Hunters are, like unassociated vampire hunters. They're just like people going out trying their best in the terrible night and hunting vampires. Or you have like the Inquisitors. This is the founding of like the Society of Leopold. This is Leopold from like the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines game, or just various other characters who are trying to band together and create a sort of shadow inquisition to eradicate the world's, demons, monsters, whatever you want to call it. And I think what we're going to do, I may load it up into this one, and then we'll see what we can do. If I load it up as this, you're going to miss out on some of the more common mechanics. So I'm just going to use Helena of Troy as my example for, just like the basics of overviewing the mod. And just remember that there's a ton of other crap in here that you can look at. I realized there was a way that I could do both things and still satisfy the requirements of what I wanted to do for this video. So we have here, I'm selecting any ruler now instead of just going on that other screen. I'm going to select Helena of Troy, just so you can see the opening. So when you load the game for the first time, this will pop up, this Welcome to Princes of Darkness, and this will introduce you to the various mechanics about being a vampire, about being whatever selected splat that you chose. There's altered concepts. There's a ton of really great information within this tutorial that I highly recommend reading if it's your first time in the mod, and this does this for every different type of character. So like if you're a werewolf, it'll discuss werewolf mechanics, or if you're like a hunter, it'll discuss those mechanics. It'll also let you, if you want to get rid of this character and create your own, you can go to the character generator, or if you want to know more about the lore, you can click here too. It's just a basic overview, but it's quite handy if you're new to the the mod, as I'm assuming most of you will be. And this is the World of Darkness. As you can see, the map is quite large. It's a good chunk of this side of the world. Obviously, a lot of, well, pretty much all of North Africa. Like up down to the center part of it, and then you got an Asia over here, basically to India. So a lot to choose from. If you go around, you'll see some pretty familiar historical faces like Anna Komnene or Komnena. There's just all kinds of stuff, but we're not really here to look at that. So what I'm going to show you right now is you can do something like called create a coterie, which would be like your group to do specific things like go hunting or whatever. You can go on a journey. There's all kinds of journeys where you can like learn new abilities, vampiric abilities. You can learn to master your beast, which would mean that you don't hunger anymore. You can reveal yourself to the Vatican. There's a lot of stuff. You can hunt in your capital. This way you get rid of your hunger, which is down here. Apparently Helena has a little bit of hunger, and then you also have to mind your Masquerade, because Masquerade exposure will cause cells of the Inquisition to start spawning within your world, and they can come hunting for you, which is not great. Herdifying Mortals gives you a certain amount of blood per year, and this is something that you'll just be doing passively most of the time. You can do like one journey, like it'll pop up here. So if you're saying like I'm gonna go hunt in my capital for, we'll just say I want these mortals. It'll pop up here. Once it's at 100%, you will set out on your hunt. And then there's also various new lifestyles within the game. So there's Animal, there's Choleric, there's Melancholy, there's Phlegmic, there's Sanguine, there's Blood Magic, which this one is actually a new school. Well, not a new school, but they updated the school recently in the mod, so it's got like a new look, different face. There's all kinds of stuff, and you can actually do blood sorcery in here. And as you can see, all kinds of little magical options. Obviously, I wouldn't be targeting myself more often than not, but it is a choice that you have. If you come over here to this thing called Umbra, you can explore basically the realms of the immaterial, which is pretty insane. Umbra is one of the only things though that I've personally as a player have had a lot of difficulty with, just because it's such a unique concept, especially within the world of Crusader Kings 3. It's very different. I don't really want to spoil too much of that, but it can be a lot. And as you can see, there's like all kinds of different decisions for you, whatever your clan happens to be, which I believe she's a Toreador, or whatever your character happens to be. So Toreadors get a few. Troy against Sparta, so you can like go against these people. You can avenge this person, the goddess of Sumer. All kinds of stuff, all kinds of really cool things. I think that if you are somebody who wants more decisions, just in Crusader Kings 3 in general, you're going to, I mean, you're spoiled for options here. But let me jump over to the Inquisition, because I want to show you them and just how different the screen looks. So as you can see, they don't have Umber because they can't go there, but they can learn new abilities, and they can also found their cells, which he already has one called the Gladius Day, and these would be people that he would use to go hunt other vampires. So I believe his main goal, he has a couple, but from what I remember the first time I played, is getting rid of this guy of House Tremere. So you have different support, the Order, or the Sisters of whatever. Consolidate House Murnau is the one that most people would probably start with. So you have to get rid of East Francia and have it under Inquisition control. And you also have to get rid of this guy and this guy as a vampire hunter. And those are two major vampire lords. This guy's like the head of the Tremere. This guy's the head of the Ventru. It's a pretty big clans. It's kind of a big deal. And once you manage to do that, I mean, you can then consolidate all the other ones. This playthrough would take ages, because if you support or do whatever, organize them, they become more powerful. And you can basically work your way through and just try and destroy as much of the vampire world as possible, which could be a lot of fun as a playthrough. I really love this guy's character. He also has his own unique lifestyles. So he has true faith and he has conviction. You might have seen that at the beginning of the video. He also gets his own unique story elements throughout this journey. A lot of them do, where they'll just have pop-ups that come up that'll explain different parts of either the lore or their own personal motivations. It's very cool. So a big thing I want to stress with this in general is that this mod is made to role play. You are playing the role of whatever character you are. You're not trying to paint the map. You're not trying to occupy things. Like if you come down here to Iberia, your purpose down here is that you're trying to take over this land for the Shadow Reconquista. This is still very much the the struggle down here in Iberia that's still going on. You're still playing the role of a vampire who has those those beliefs, those fears, those anxieties about other vampires that are different from you, like the Banu Hakim. It is really cool. Or like the Courts of Love has this cool internal politicking thing where you can play as the former ruler. Actually, who is this guy? Oh, Michael of Constantinople. That was her, apparently her parent. That's really interesting. She was sired by him. What generation is she? 5th? What generation is he? 4th? That's interesting. And then obviously if you go back to like the lore, this is like Cain, from Cain and Abel. He's the founder of all of all vampire kind. He's been gone for a while, disappeared without a trace. His stats are probably unknowable, and these are his children. He's got Enoch, he's got Irad, and he's got Zyla. Zyla was also, I believe, his lover, and they had some children together. Yeah, he had Set. If I'm not wrong, I could be misremembering. It's been a while since I read into the lore, but a lot of cool mythological elements if you're into that. But again, what I was trying to say, you're playing as a role within this world. Like if you're playing as we'll just say the Smishi, I can't remember ever how to say it, your goal would probably be to eradicate the Tremere. That's a huge part of their story, which I believe is part of, yes, the Eternal Change. And this would unify the Smishis, especially against them, and that's a really cool option. You can enter Torpor if you are a vampire so that you can go into like a rest state. It's something that I think you can do if you're in danger, or if you're like injured or something. It's cool. So you're playing as a specific role, and you're essentially just trying to satisfy your goals, but there's so many different options to do within the mod itself that you can really just, I mean, the world is your oyster, is essentially what I'm saying. There's so many different courts. Like you have obviously werewolves up here. I would say the 3 major things to play as are probably, the hunters, vampires obviously, and then werewolves are like probably the big 3 I would recommend starting with. Werewolves are like one of the closer ones to people. As you can see, they also have their own pretty ridiculous amount of options, and then they also get their own unique schools, like breed gifts, auspice gifts, tribal gifts, planetary gifts. So everybody has their own unique stuff as far as that goes as well. If you wanted to play as a demon, you're like, okay, I want to be a demon person. I already know she's right here, but there's an option there. You can also, and Ares, the Lord of War, the literal Lord of War, you can play as him. And demons have their own unique features as well, which I'll click over here just to show you. I don't want to overwhelm you with like explaining anything. This isn't a tutorial on how to play Princes of Darkness. This is more just making you aware that this exists. So yeah, demons get Arcana, and yeah, you can see this is it's overwhelming. There's so many things you can do, and then demons also obviously get their own unique decisions, like the Nephilim, Restore Babylon, Primordial Sin Dragon, just all kinds of stuff. And this is what I love about Princes of Darkness, is that even though it is still within the confines of Crusader Kings 3, the amount of things that have been added to it elevate it to the point where you could justify this as being its own vampire map game. Like sans Crusader Kings, it is its own thing completely. There is no other game where I've been able to, because I've made a character here. I made a custom character in the Courts of Love once, and her only purpose was that she wanted to steal this sword from this lady, and so I was just stealing things, because you can raid people's vaults. I don't know if actually you can do that. Okay, yeah, so you can do an artifact heist, or you can steal their gold through, like a vault infiltration mission, and it's really, really cool, and it's fun to just play as like I think it'd be really fun to do it as a Nosferatu. That's what I did, because they just sort of live in the sewers, they're in the shadowy dens, and they're just like running around stealing artifacts from people. It's a fun way to play. There's all kinds of things. You can work as Mithras, taking over England. You could play as one of the various Fae, and they have a lot of other motivations as well. They're not on the map, as I said on this one. They don't load in unless you select their start, which I believe won't spawn in the Inquisition, which is kind of a bummer. They'll be in the game, but they won't have like their set places. But this is just such a tiny overview of what you can do. I mean, you can craft things. Again, you can go to Umber. You can do journeys. You have your own courts, obviously. You can host Elysium. I forgot about this. This is where you get like the vampires in your realm to come together and try to like decide what you should be doing as a vampiric, nation, a vampiric court. Because this guy's technically an emperor, I want to say. Yeah, he's the Feats of the Black Cross, so he's like the Shadow Holy Roman Emperor. And these people all exist between the lines, of society. Like society would be going on above all of this, and these guys would be like the real masters behind, in all the shadows. It's very interesting. We didn't even go down to mummies yet. which is a whole other thing. They get their own schools, alchemy, amulet, celestial, effigy, necromancer, nomenclature, all kinds of crap. They also get their own unique art up here in their dynasty legacies, which I think a lot of them do get their own dynasty legacies as well. So if you're familiar with the game, there's even more to do. I'm pretty sure Horus's main thing is that he's trying to take revenge on Set for killing his father, which I don't think his dad actually shows up on this, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah, he's trying to take revenge on Set and Set's followers, who control most of Egypt in this area up here. Learning true names, I can't remember what this is all about, but Horus is a fun character if you want to play as a mummy. He's probably one of the stronger characters as far as that goes. I mean, he's a 5-level exalted warlord over here, but he's got a lot going on. There's a lot of great stuff in this mod. I mean, he's not actually even like a ruler yet or anything, but he's just got so many things that he can do. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, he's got all this alchemical stuff. I think mummies can actually resurrect themselves or get resurrected by somebody else who practices like the Setite faith or something. I can't recall, but there's just so much to this mod, and I think it's criminal how many people think this is just the vampire mod without considering that there's like 30 years of lore behind this and such a massive world for you to explore, for you to experiment in, and for you to enjoy. There's just it's unbelievable how much stuff there is, and we didn't even click over here, and there's just tons and tons of things. And most clans have their overall goals, and then individuals will also occasionally have their own. Not everybody will. I would obviously be insane, but this mod's been in work for years now, so there's just so much for you to explore. So I decided to load in as this Fae here, just to give you guys a view of that as well, because I figured it'd be kind of unfair if we didn't. That way you can also see the differences in the map, and also you can see that there's different tutorials. We're not going to look at those. I highly recommend checking them out though, and of course they have their own unique arts. They have their own unique, pretty much everything. You can muse a mortal, which is different. They'll get inspiration, so you're basically like motivating them to create great works. This guy is the Lord of the Mountains. I believe he's a troll, which they might actually say that somewhere on here. Yeah, okay, so yeah, he's a troll, so he's a powerful giant. And if we look at his character, he looks phenomenal, and there's some really great modeling work done in here. But as you can see now on the map, the Fae are in various different areas. So we have like the courts of winter, we have the courts of, I believe autumn is over here. Yeah, autumn is right here. The court of spring, and then the court of summer is, I'm not actually sure where the court of summer is. I don't see it at first glance, but you have various different courts and obviously different characters now within the mod. If you add in the Fae, you get a lot more variety with your characters that you'll see on the map, which is really cool. And they, of course, have their own unique decisions, have their own unique like goals that you can do. It's so much. And I didn't even talk about it really, but let's zoom in here, because if you look, there's actually different ways that you're going to be controlling, your realm. So for a Fae, it looks like it's more typical, but if you go to a vampire, what's interesting is the way that it's worded is you're sort of influencing basically the city in which you're living in. So like you have like this castle that's built here. You can build a princedom. You can influence the nobles or influence the merchants, and these will be like various ways of like forced conscription. You can do a blood tax. It's like various different options that are more unique to being a vampire, so you can kind of frame how you want to be viewed within the realm that you control. And these will obviously cause other issues for you, as you can read. There's positives and negatives for doing each of these things, but you can really like become as noble or as much of a kind of a bastard vampire as you want. And I was talking about the courts of love, and I realized that I cut myself off because I was too excited about seeing the Archangel Michael. So you can play as this rival here. So this is Count Alexander, the Graceful Tyrant. He used to rule the courts of love, but was taken over by this character who's actually their rival. And I believe King Joffrey is also one of his friends, or no, he's one of his rivals. Yes, okay, so Joffrey, Saliana, and then Alexander are all vying for control of the courts of love. So that's just like one minor politicking thing that's happening just within this tiny realm. And you can imagine that is, it's basically everywhere, because it's going on all across the map. We didn't look at the Dynasty Legacies, but as you can see, there's actually a lot for vampires. And there's just so much. And I really wanted to stress that in this video, that if you're a person who likes a mod that just changes everything from the basic way, the loop you're going to be playing, it is not at all the same as Crusader Kings 3, because you're going to be playing as your character. You're going to be trying to satisfy those motivations through various events, various decisions, various journeys, magical or otherwise, and it's so incredible. And I hope you guys like this video. And let's go to the outro now. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. I also want to shout out my channel members who make this channel go round, especially my Paladin members. Those would be Dwayne the Rock Lobster, Zora Luigi, Dunyo, Valadar, Candriff, and Lachlan. I appreciate you guys very, very much for your support, but I appreciate the support of all my channel members. And if you'd like to consider becoming a channel member, you can do that through the membership tab on my YouTube channel. But I hope this video was cool for you. I hope this was maybe eye-opening. Maybe you weren't aware of just how much lore, how much history has gone into making this mod. The fact that it is now, I believe, a proper successor just because of the amount of roles you can play in a way that hasn't been available to us as fans of this game, this series before, and I don't know if it'll be there in the sequel or, like, I guess the not sequel, whatever. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Soul, and I will happily see you in the next one.